Here's the truth nobody prepares you for. You can survive cancer. You can rebuild your life. You can start dreaming again. But when it comes to motherhood, the questions don't stop. The fear doesn't stop. And the hope, it gets louder. For so many women of color, navigating motherhood after breast cancer is complicated. It's emotional. It's expensive. It's political. And it's deeply personal. Today, we're talking about fertility, advocacy, grief, joy, and the new paths we're carving for ourselves. Because our stories are more than statistics. They're dreams, they're choices, they're ours. This is Baddie2Baddie, and today, we're getting real about motherhood dreams after cancer.
I am Cynthia. I serve as the creative director and a Baddie ambassador here at For the Rest of Us. And I am joined by these lovely baddies tonight. And let's start with Jovonsia. Tell me a little bit about yourself and where you are in your fertility motherhood journey.
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Jovonsia Gidry, 3-year breast cancer survivor. As far as my fertility journey, I am currently working on just building the relationship with my husband. That's focusing on ourselves. In the fertility journey process, we've done 3 egg retrievals and have several embryos that are frozen. So the next step for us in our fertility journey will be a transfer. But prior to that, I will have to do some checks and an additional surgery to remove fibroids, but have done 3 rounds of IVF.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Ms. Linley, how about you?
I was diagnosed at 32 with stage 2 breast cancer. I'm 4 years at survivorship right now. I saved 15 eggs back in November of 2020. As of now, I'm still trying naturally. I was told recently that I would need to either rush on my trying or start with IVF. So I am in limbo at the moment.
Understood. Thank you for joining us. And Miss Nadia, we can kind of see where you are in your journey with our baddie baby, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
A little bit, but there's so much more to come. I'm sure we'll uncover during this conversation, but I am Nadia Smith. I am a For the Best of Us Baddie ambassador as well as a strategic advisor, and diagnosed with DCIS at the age of 33 in 2016. So I'll be celebrating 10 years of survivorship on June the 3rd. I did have an egg harvesting procedure. I did conceive my son naturally. And there were a lot of, it was an emotional roller coaster getting there. We were not trying. And I was advised differently, even before conceiving. So we'll get into a little bit of my story and some of the things that I was told by physicians, and then even throughout pregnancy, some of the things that I dealt with in the journey of having a healthy baby and a healthy pregnancy. So glad to be here with you all, ladies, so we can share, have this conversation about a topic that is really sensitive and a lot of others shy away from, but there's so many that want to hear the different stories about fertility and fertility preservation after diagnosis.
Absolutely. And that leads me to my first question, ladies. What did you know about fertility at the start of your breast cancer diagnosis? Was it something that you even thought of? How did we end up here? Like, what was your first conversation about fertility? Anybody jump in?
Okay, I'll go first. So when I was diagnosed, November 4th, 2020, I had no idea anything about egg retrievals, IVF, any of that, because I had been trying naturally for my entire marriage. I'm married now for 13 years, but before that, we're just trying, and we had never gotten pregnant, never had a steer or anything. So when they told me I had cancer, then I'm thinking I'll just never be a mother now, or I'm dying and all these things, right? And they tell me, well, you can save your eggs. And I'm like, well, what is that? How much does it cost? So that's how I even learned what IVF was, or even how to get it done and finding out how expensive it was and just being thrown into it immediately because you feel like it's life or death. You don't really have a choice. So you're just like, well, whatever it costs, I'll just, give up my 401k for this because I have kids or I don't. So That's how I was just thrown into it.
Jovonsia, how about you?
I would say mine was a little different. My fertility journey is actually what led me to my breast cancer diagnosis. So similar to Linley, my husband and I have been trying for several years, but were unsuccessful naturally. And I have a family history of fibroids and cysts, so it's something that I always monitored closely. And I only have one ovary and fallopian tube. I had my right removed when I was very young due to fibroids and cysts. So I knew that I may have fertility issues once I actually started conceiving. And prior to beginning IVF, because I was 35 when I got diagnosed, I had a family history of breast cancer. And so my reproductive endocrinologist recommended that I go get seen by the high-risk breast cancer clinic. It's the only mammogram I've ever had because I was younger than 40. And so after my breast cancer diagnosis, I knew that IVF was going to be the best route for me because of my age and because I only had one ovary remaining.
Lydia, how about you?
Yeah, for me, the conversation came up actually with my radiation oncologist. So we were just talking, it was during my consult. We were going through what days I'm going to have my treatment, how many days, how many minutes, all the things, right, that goes along with the radiation oncology. And he stated just one simple question like, well, do you plan to have a family? Do you plan to have kids? I was 33. And for me, my trajectory looked a little bit different. Like I was on the corporate hustle, living my best life, running the half marathons and things. So motherhood wasn't, in my forefront, right in the forefront of my mind. So when he had that conversation, it made me pause. Like, what does that mean, right? So we set up some time to meet at an IVF clinic. I did go through with the egg harvesting procedure, but it was very expensive. And also the day of my retrieval, I only had 2 viable eggs. So it went from 12 to 2. But that same day, I was scheduled to start my radiation therapy. So luckily, I introduced all my doctors. They were already a network. So one called the other and it's like, this is just what happened. So I want to make sure before you start your treatment that there's a conversation, right? So I had a choice to make. Do I go through another cycle or do I start with my radiation therapy? And when you get there, you start to hear all these things. There's so much going through my brain. And I had spent some time with my radiation oncologist just with talking. So he knew that like I wasn't at peace with it. So he actually said, we're going to hold your appointment. You go home, you pray about it, you think about it. And when you're ready, your appointment will be here because do I go through another cycle of this? We talked about how expensive this is, all the drugs, and emotionally it kind of takes over your life, right? You have to do this at this time every day, or do I kind of move on and dismiss this idea of being a mother, birthing a child, for survival. So it kind of came up during a conversation and it was with a white male. So it wasn't like this is a woman saying, how do you feel about childbirth? This was a man, which somewhat made the conversation awkward, but I was very appreciative that he saw me, right? He saw like my unique circumstances versus saying, this is what I do and this is the treatment that I'm going to render. He looked at the holistic situation of how this could impact me starting this treatment with the failed egg harvesting procedure.
I think that's really interesting. Not many of us even have the conversations with our care team, much less with the male member of the care team, right as you're getting ready to start radiation. And they have the wherewithal to say, you know what? However you want to do this, let's do it. We can pause, take the time that you need, because that doesn't always happen. Linley and Jovonsia, did that happen for you? Who initiated the fertility conversations in your treatment? Or was it because you had already been kind of at it, you brought it to the table?
No, I didn't bring it to the table. My male oncologist did. Nice. The first day I met him, so I was diagnosed on the 4th. I met him on the 6th. And the first question he asked me, what do you want out of your life? And I said, to be a mother and to live. And he said, you'll be a mother and you'll live. And
that is amazing. That is amazing.
He flowed with it. He said, okay, so we'll get you into fertility first. We'll get you, go get your eggs done. And then we'll talk about like treatment. Like he just jumped right into it for me. I think if I didn't say I wanted to be a mother, I don't think he would have jumped to it though, honestly. He was very stuck on like, let's get you through chemo as soon as that was done with. So I think when I shifted it and told him I wanted to be a mother, he just was like, fine, let's just focus on this. This is what she wants. We'll focus on that part and then we'll worry about everything else after. So yeah.
Very, very nice. I'm glad again that someone heard you, saw you, and took your concerns seriously. Jovonsia, what about you?
So for me, my team was all women, so a little bit different. But when I was diagnosed, I was actually stage 0. And we had the conversation about fertility at that initial appointment. But because I was stage 0 in DCIS and it hadn't spread, for me, it was important to talk about, okay, what is going to be the safest route as far as surgeries and what is going to have the least amount of healing time, because time was not on our side from a egg standpoint and age. So because I was stage 0 and elected to do a double mastectomy, my treatment plan was extremely different from most survivors. So did not have to do chemo or radiation because I hadn't spread, as well as medications. I was able to go from revision surgery into my first round of IVF about 6 months later.
So let's talk about some egg freezing. How did that? What was that process like? How did you cover the cost? Does insurance cover any of that? Let's talk about it for the girlies who don't know.
I can go. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I would say, like, for me, that was, and I had to use the W word, but that was one of the worst parts. And it wasn't the procedure itself. It was all the things that went into it. The medication, which was expensive. I did get a Live Strong grant, to cover some of the medication. But the timing, right? You have to do certain things at the same time every day. I was working because I was perfectly healthy up into this diagnosis, and we can go into that story, but, and having to every other day, I can't remember, every other day or so there were appointments. So it was really, it consumed your life. So that was the part that really made me feel it was a reality of my life is changing forever. And it wasn't at that diagnosis. It was really when I started to go through that process that I realized, like, oh, I felt like I was in a rush, that the clock was ticking. And so when I had that opportunity to go through the second cycle, that was one of the reasons why I gave a no, right? It was for me, is for me, but I did not want to go through that again. So I opted not to go through another cycle, because of that. But yeah, covering, I did have to have some grants for that. I did pull from some of my from my financial accounts to cover that at the time. We have had legislation advancements, right? To cover some of those things. But at the time, 10 years, you're talking 10 years ago, those things were not in place. So it was a financial, investment, right, to do that. And that was a part of my decision as well, not to go into the second cycle.
Linley, you want to share?
Yeah. So, same with that. That scheduling was like atrocious. Like as soon as I found out, it was like, okay, clock's ticking, go. You have until November 20th to get this done, because you got to get your PET scans, this CT scans, then take the shots, then do this, and then figure out life and work on top of that. Like full time working, like not even playing around. I pulled from my 401k originally when they first told me how much everything was going to cost, because it was just like, you want to do it or not? And I'm like, well, I don't have a choice, do I? Do I want to be a mother or do I not? So I pulled from my 401k. They told me to fill out some grants and scholarship forms and possibly might get something. I got to Live Strong for the medication. Initially, I got the eggs retrieved on the 20th, the day right after my first round of chemo. They said it would be okay because the chemo hadn't fully set into my body yet. So that next morning I woke up after chemo and went and got my eggs retrieved the very next day. So it was just a whirlwind of Oh my God, I just got chemo and I got my eggs pulled out and I don't even know what's happening.
Like you haven't processed what happened, right? You're not processing.
Yeah, no clue. And everybody's like, yeah, you're just gonna get through it. I'm like, I don't even know who I am anymore. Like I was just hiking a mountain the month before. Now you're telling me I had cancer and I might not have kids and die. Thanks. So I found out in December that I had actually won the Chick Mission grant, which will pay for your IVF and egg retrieval and storage. So they ended up reimbursing me the funds that I had pulled from my 401k. So they paid for my egg retrieval and the first 2 years of my egg storage here in Texas. So I was thankful for them because I had no idea that was even possible. I was just told at the fertility clinic, fill out this scholarship, you might get it. They're really based in New York. But I think they're branching out to Texas now. So that's what I did. And I filled it out and I ended up winning that. But it was a mess.
I mean, I can't imagine. Of course, I've been through the chaos of you have cancer. Let's go. I can't imagine having to do egg retrieval and worry about if I will ever see the dream of being a mother come true all at the same time. So hats off to you ladies. Jovonsia, what was your egg freezing experience like?
So first, let me say, man, we got some warriors on this call. I love how everyone has health and wellness at the forefront of their journey, and hasn't allowed the circumstances or the hands that we've been dealt to change who we are. For me, for my egg freezing, it was definitely a journey, that's for sure. I'm a marathon runner, so I say it was like a marathon. And thankfully, my employer, they did cover my first round of IVF, of treatment and medication. But as everyone knows, if your employer, or even through a scholarship, if it's a dollar amount, 9 times out of 10, it may get you through one round if you're lucky. So that was my case with the first one. And then my second and third round, my husband and I are both veterans. So we did find that the VA does have some infertility benefits as well that we were not aware of prior to starting our journey. And they have been extremely a blessing when it comes to the financial piece. But part of our IVF process was also genetic testing. So that was an expense that we ended up having to pay out of pocket to hopefully improve reducing the risk for our children to carry on this mutation and be diagnosed with cancer in the future. So definitely a financial burden, but more importantly, it was more about the time away from work, trying to figure out how you can make it to your appointments. Everything is drop what you're doing with IVF. There's really no planning. You're just sitting by the phone waiting for a call or waiting for an email with results and that next step. So that was definitely challenging.
What myths and misconceptions about fertility and egg freezing have you learned about? Did you want to share? What did you learn that you didn't know previously?
I'm trying to think because I went into it knowing nothing, right? This was just like, what? I'm going to do what?
I can agree on the not knowing what to do. Like, just like what do you do? There's no guidebook, I feel like, to IVF, especially since everybody's journey is different with it. Some are choosing to do this because they just want to do IVF, or that was the other option they were given outside of a disease diagnosis. So for me, I don't know about any myths. I wish there was something like a tool that was presented to me when I was first diagnosed. Like, okay, this is how you do IVF. This is how you are possibly going to get your eggs. This is how you're going to build your family. I feel like I'm finding out something new still. And we're past the diagnosis.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
When listening to you, that was the one thing. I thought it was a one and done thing, right? You have the appointment. So that was the myth, that you go in and you get it done and you go about your life. I had no clue that it involved all these medications, all these different appointments. So you get the standbys because you need to stand by to know if the next appointment is confirmed. All those things I did not know. And also just the options, right? Freezing the egg, the process of freezing the egg. egg versus freezing an embryo. The difference is I didn't know that. I thought it was all one and the same. The process was the same. It was one and done, and you kind of move on. Not what we're saying we experienced, right? On this call.
I would say one thing that I learned is that it's definitely a longer journey and process than what they make it seem like it is. Like everyone's saying, they make it seem like, okay, we're going to do IVF and then we're going to be done. You're going to move on. But IVF takes a hold of your life, who you are, and everything that's happening around you. It has to be the center of it. It challenges every aspect of your life. And what I found going from one round to the next round is, a lot of times they say, well, as you get older, like you're going to have less and less eggs. Every round you may have less and less embryos that actually make it through all the way through. My third round was my most successful round. So I was the oldest. I had switched fertility clinics, but I also learned a lot in that process. I learned the importance of, different supplements and vitamins and how long, I can't start taking a prenatal vitamin, for example, today and have IVF treatment start next week. It's what have I been doing in the last 3 to 6 months that's going to impact my infertility journey. I did acupuncture, and, some say, well, it helps or it doesn't help. Maybe it's a myth, maybe it's true, but I can tell you what it did help me do is relax. And really focus on myself. It was an hour twice a week where it was just about me, and I was able to slow everything down and focus on those trigger points. And my second round, I had 0 embryos that were viable. So that really, really challenged me. I was like, do I want to really do another round? But like I said, my third one was the most successful.
Hey, baddies. We want to take a quick minute to shout out our amazing sponsor, Eli Lilly, for supporting our mission here on Baddie2Baddie. Because of their generosity, we can keep these important conversations about breast cancer awareness, education, and advocacy going strong for our community of women of color. We send our sincere thanks to our partners at Eli Lilly for standing with us. Calling all permanent makeup artists. Discover how you can join our mission to empower breast cancer survivors of color with specialized permanent makeup services. It's more than makeup, it's a movement. Connect with us and find out how you can contribute to this empowering cause by visiting baddies2Baddie.com. In return, you will receive free breast health education, permanent makeup trainings, and much more. The Baddie Beauty Collective is brought to you by For the Breast of Us, Artistry by Zuri, and PM Yukon. If you're a breast cancer survivor looking to boost your confidence and add a bit of swag to your new normal, this is your invitation to explore free and discounted permanent makeup services by artists trained in the specifics and nuances of skin for women of color. From eyebrows to 3D areola and scar transformation, join us and let your journey of empowerment begin. Check out the Baddie Beauty Collective, brought to you by For the Breast of Us, Artistry by Zuri, and PM Yukon by visiting baddies2Baddie.com. Let's go a little deeper on that. I can't imagine you have cancer and having to go through this. What was it like juggling the emotions of both processes? And again, some of the things I love that you branched out and did supplements and acupuncture. What are some of the other things that you guys did to help you get through?
I will say, me being a nerd, so I kind of dove into educating myself. That was a way of coping. Like, the more I knew, the more comfortable I felt when I went into those appointments. And then as well as just focusing on other aspects of my health. I was a runner as well. So I think when I was diagnosed, I was training for a marathon like 6 days after running a half and a weekend of racing, right? So it was a 5K and a half, and we were building up. So I continued to focus on the health. And then later down the line, and we're talking much later, 2 years after active treatment, was when I started therapy. And so I would say I advise anybody from that moment, if thinking back, what was the one thing you would have changed? I would have called a therapist the day I probably planned to walk into that IVF office or knew of it, because that was the most emotional part of this journey for me. So when the devastation, I don't think there was necessarily devastation of getting the diagnosis. For some reason, my brain was wide and I was almost, prepared for what that conversation could be. But the devastation was having that failed egg retrieval and being in the place where I had to make a decision on being a mother or living, right? So I think the therapy helped me process later, but it definitely would have been beneficial for me as I was working through that to have a trained medical professional with me, going through that journey for the support.
I agree on the therapy. I wish I would have started it faster, knowing like this is what I'm going through. I didn't get real therapy until like right after I finished all my treatments, because of course, you're dropped into life again. They just let you go. So then you try to figure out your normal. So that's when I got into therapy and all the stuff kind of came out about fertility, because I still had that in the back of my mind about using those eggs or not using them or whatever, or actually actively doing IVF. A lot of prayer for me. My life shifted. So I turned to God for myself. And that was how I kind of like cope with, okay, what are we doing, Lord? Are you going to let me have kids? Or is this just my new journey? Is this my path? Whatever this is. I've been really following him a lot closer, because I can't do it on my own. I don't know what my future holds. Along with working out as well. My job is, I'm a neuro exercise physiologist. So I train people to get better, from cancer, from spinal cord injuries, whatever it may be. So I try to help them get better. So for me, I try to take care of myself too, just because I'm like, well, I'm getting older, I do need to keep my body in good shape just in case, I decide to use IVF or whatever may happen. So
I would say similar to Linley. The mental health piece is key. And I was seeing a therapist right when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So we had a really good relationship going into IVF, but I think IVF it takes a hold of you, who you are, your life, and unless you're going through the process yourself, like no one really understands the desire, that strong desire to be a mother naturally. And, that's how Linley and I actually met, having a conversation about IVF. We go breast cancer camp. But, I think that without that therapist, I've been seeing her now for almost 4 or 5 years. We adjust our frequency. So when life is lifing, we might meet every week. When life is on my side, then I may graduate to once a month or once a quarter. But I do keep her close, because she understands the intricacies of who I am, how I operate, and allows me to bring others to my session that may play a part in whatever it is I'm dealing with at the time.
Did you feel seen and understood in the fertility space?
I would say for me, initially, no. Initially, I did not feel that way. So because I didn't, I started doing research. And found a lot of different organizations out there, but the message that I kept hearing is, you can fire your team and hire someone else. It may be a process, but firing a team and getting one that actually understands you is what made the biggest difference in my fertility journey. It was important for me to have a woman of color as my reproductive endocrinologist, and it forced me to travel a little bit for appointments. But it was a very different experience for me, having a team that looked like me.
I'll say being seen, yes. Being understood, no. My case now is a little different because not everybody knows, but back in August, I got pregnant naturally out of nowhere. Didn't expect it, wasn't trying, just living. And it ended up being an ectopic pregnancy. So I had to lose my fallopian tube on my right side. So after that, of course, they were like, nope, you need to go to a fertility specialist, because you're playing with fire now. You might not get pregnant again, and you might do it and you might damage yourself, and then you have nothing but IVF left. And just being being told that you only have IVF left when you still have another fallopian tube is like being slapped in the face. And so when I say I'm being seen, yeah, they see me, but they don't understand that I still want to try. So I feel like I'm being pressured now to hurry it up and get this trying over with and jump into IVF versus doing it naturally.
I think for me, I felt seen. And again, I conceived at 40, right? So 40 was my age where I said that, I'm going to chalk it up to living my best life, scheduled the 40th solo trip. And, I had the bucket list and all the things. And then I found out that I was pregnant, but I think initially I felt seen, but they didn't really understand why it was such a big deal for me to be pregnant without the consult of my medical team. So there was a fear there, like, what did I do, right? Like, this is a blessing, but what did I do? Like, have I done something wrong? Because I didn't have that medical team surrounding me, because I wasn't attempting, to conceive. That was something that I kind of wrote off in the back of my mind. So it took them a while to understand. I had just been released to the yearly visits, right? So just graduated. And it took my team a while to say, like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. I understand what you're saying, but what do we need to do to make sure that this pregnancy is healthy? And also with my diagnosis of being ER/PR positive, HER2 negative, this pregnancy, I had to produce these hormones, right? That you are saying put me at a greater risk. So because I was educated, I started with that coping mechanism of educating myself. I understood, and I was posing those questions to my medical team. And it's like, no, you're saying I'm okay, but I'm saying I need to be under your care. Right?
I think that's tough. I mean, you go from diagnosis to we have to move quick. And we always say audition your medical team. Like you said, Jovonsia, they work for you. You have to choose them, but you don't really have the time to do that. And that can play a big part in how comfortable you feel, how well they understand you, if they're really the best fit. So that's tough. Did you notice any disparities or biases in your care?
I would say that I did. And that was one of the reasons why I switched clinics for my IVF process. So, I had got referred to one reproductive endocrinologist. He was the person to go to in that area. I was in Linley at the time. And when I tell you, I called the office and I felt like a number. It was really, really hard to get a hold of the team. And I'm like, I just beat cancer, and, I don't have time on my side, and I can't get them to answer the phone. They weren't very welcoming. And then I found out about another clinic, where everyone on that reproductive team had been through IVF. So the care and concern that was there, I mean, it was night and day difference. I now had to drive an hour and a half for those appointments. And, they ended up sending me somewhere else. But initially, that clinic saved my life, because that clinic was the one who told me, hey, we've done the test to see that your other fallopian tube is blocked, so you're not going to be able to conceive naturally. So we want to go ahead and jump to IVF because time is not on your side. But what we do want you to do is first go to the breast cancer clinic, because you have a lot of other factors that could impact your infertility journey. So go see them first, and then we'll go from there. And that's how I was diagnosed.
I would say that I don't feel that there was bias. Like, they took the time, right? And it was almost to the point where they made me think about what was happening and the decisions that I was making. Everything was really explained. I didn't feel like I walked in the office as a chart, right? Like, I was there, and before I walked in, they knew what was happening, right? And they were ready and prepared to educate me. Do we need to sit outside the exam room so you're comfortable? It was those small things that really made a difference. Like, when we were having conversations, we were not in the exam room, and that was my choice. I had the choice to go into almost a lounge or like a sitting room area versus being in the exam room, because there's that cause, anxiety of being there with the equipment and all the things surrounding me. So it was the little things and the care that they took, with understanding where I was.
My first clinic was very biased. I was a number definitely at that first one. I think they just saw so many women that they were just like burning and churning. And I was like, nah, that's not gonna work. But luckily I ended up getting a new job, and so I had new insurance. So I had no choice but to find a new place because my old place didn't take me anymore. So the fertility clinic I'm at now is fresh. This is all fresh. This is August, right? They're welcoming, but I'm filling them out because I don't want to be pushed. I don't want to be pressured into this IVF thing. I want to still give my body a chance. So I'm filling them out at the moment. Right now they're okay, but I'm just waiting to see what might happen with them.
Breast cancer by itself requires a ton of emotional resilience, as does fertility. How are you navigating the ups and downs of survivorship and fertility?
I'll go. Yeah. I'm here. It's a day-to-day thing. Some days I am like amazing. And then other days I think like I would have been 4 months pregnant now, and I am losing it, and I am not myself, and I am not okay. And, that's why I say I pray a lot, because if I didn't, then I probably wouldn't be here, because I would let my emotions overwhelm me, and all these feelings of, you just beat cancer, you're trying to be a mom, you're trying to be a good wife, you're trying to advance in your career, you're trying all these things. I can't handle it all. And life be lifing, yo. So yeah.
Like, that's the episode in itself. Life be lifing, okay? Like, it does not stop. It does not stop at diagnosis. And for me, I think I was like borderline, like you're just kind of like making it, just getting through the days, even though, yes, I conceive naturally, you still have all the things like, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? What does this mean? Like, does this hurt? Like, this is like what, like, you have all these, it's like this fear. You're constantly thinking that something's going to happen, or you're doing something wrong, and so it almost, to a certain extent, it kind of robs you of, of the joy of being pregnant. And I can speak, it did for me, right? For so many weeks, I don't want to say anything because, this could happen. And when do you say something? So it was, yes, I was able to conceive, but I still had the diagnosis still, kind of robbed me of certain things throughout my pregnancy. And so I was really like, now I will say I didn't start therapy until 2 years after active treatment, but throughout my pregnancy, I was with the therapist like every week, clockwork, every week. And I may have to send an email, like midweek, but we were trying to get through this thing, because it was, you have the pregnancy hormones, and then you still have this fear of the future too, almost like, what does this mean? Like, I'm going to bring a small human into this world. Like, do I have all of my affairs in order? Like, what do I need to do, after pregnancy to make sure I'm the healthiest? And then I ended up having an emergency cesarean. And then that's when I kind of started to spiral, and my blood pressure went up, because I did not want to have another surgery. And in that moment, that's when all the things came rushing back. I did not want to be wheeled into a operating room, right, to birth this miracle. So it's constantly an emotional journey, even after being pregnant, after having a successful pregnancy and a healthy child. Every day there's.
No, you muted.
Sorry, my assistant muted me. But every day there's something that you have to think about, right? And it all stems back to that day, right, that you got this diagnosis, and so many things changed.
I would say for me that very similar to what has been shared already, what's helped me kind of deal with it or work through it, it's just documenting it and sharing it. Prior to my breast cancer diagnosis, I was an extremely private person, not on social media, none of that. Like, what happens at home stays at home kind of mentality. Right. And I realized that the more I researched, the more I looked for survivors of all of the things that looked like me. It didn't exist. So creating that community, being able to share open and honestly, how I was feeling, whether it was the mental health piece that Nadia is talking about, or how Linley mentioned, how it impacts you at work, and obviously the impact that it has on our family, whether it's our significant other or our parents. They all get to that point where they're like, well, if it's not meant to be, then it ain't gonna be. It's like, no, don't put that in the air. Especially as you get older, and a lot of our parents' generations, they don't understand the science and technology. So to reach out to my parents and say, hey, I know y'all don't like to go to the doctor, but I need y'all to go get genetic testing. And they're like, you need me to do what? I'm like, look, I need to know where this mutation came from. And, that was a process in itself, to have the most viable embryo. So for me, it became a journey of, if I have the ability to break this cycle, I'm going to break it. So like I mentioned before, I have embryos that are frozen. I think IVF it robs you of the surprise. There's no surprise at all, unless you say, I don't want to know the sex of my embryos. But for me and my husband, that was important, because I'm a carrier for two mutations. One puts me at a higher risk for all the women cancers, and the other one puts me at a higher risk for every other cancer. So it's not if I'll get cancer, it's when and where. So I do a lot of scanning and treatment proactively throughout the year. But to get a female embryo means one thing for us, and to get a male means something different. Do we use embryos that have the mutation because we know the ones that have it and the ones that don't? But it took us a long time to be able to build a case to get that information. And we've allowed our parents to walk with us in that journey. And so for them, it's like the embryo as a baby, it's like it's just a little frozen baby. And I'm like, there's still so much more that has to happen. But I'm glad you have faith, and I'm glad that you're there walking with me. But let's just keep it on ice for now.
I think that's such an important piece. And we talk about, breast cancer it challenges you to face your mortality, challenges how you feel about yourself as a woman. Your body changes, your mental changes. What are the conversations like genetics that we need to be having to normalize talking about our fertility and making sure that women of color especially know all their options, know what they're getting themselves into?
I think the most difficult conversation, which should be easy, is having that conversation around family history, right? So especially in the African American community, there's a stigma around illness, right? So when you have those elders in your family that may have passed from breast cancer, but it's just, auntie died because, she was sick. Well, what does that mean, right? And if we had that conversation, we double clicked into what sick was, we would have access to preventative care, right? And to screenings and a risk management plan, right? All because we knew what auntie was sick with. So it's sitting at the table and having those difficult conversations could lead to different outcomes, right? For many of us. So that's the hardest piece. And I think that there's just a certain sense of pride associated with, we don't want to talk to strangers. And the pandemic shifted that, right? So during the pandemic, you ended up talking to all these strangers. I met Cynthia. She was a complete stranger, but for the rest of us was one of those outlets. So I think there was a benefit of the pandemic. We went into this virtual world where we didn't see faces and we were behind screens, but it helped us to open up. So if we can open up within our intimate family circles the way we open up to strangers during the pandemic, then we would have a better understanding of our genetics, what we're genetically exposed to, our family history, and we can start the preventive care and the maintenance and the screenings that would help us get to a better outcome, right? That could remove some of that fear around this disease.
I think she summed it up perfectly. I have no input.
I think where it challenges us is that we have this mindset of, I need to know all of the things. I need to know the family history. I need to know why auntie was sick, how old she was when she was diagnosed, did she go get checked, did she just stumble upon it? And as we start clicking in, a lot of times it scares family because they don't want to talk about it. And so you have to find a way to also protect your own mental, in that process. Because I can say for myself, like, I had to distance myself from my family for a little while, my extended family, because the history is just, it's so strong. Like that mutation, every generation, it's riddled with it. And a lot of my cousins, they don't find out about it till later because they don't go to the doctor like that. Some of them have done preventative surgeries because of the breast cancer history. But when you start asking those questions and you're not getting the results you want, when you're trying to build a family and do all of the things to bring a healthy child into this world, it can be frustrating and upsetting to know that it's like pulling teeth to get that information sometimes. Let alone now we have to go talk to a stranger about family history that we barely understand. So for myself, I come from a military family. My parents were in, and so I didn't really grow up around my aunts and uncles, cousins. It's almost like I was that stranger, coming in and asking all these questions. And I remember the first time I went to the high-risk breast cancer clinic, and they're like, "Okay, are your grandparents living?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this one is not." "Well, did any of them have cancer?" And I'm like, "Yep, my grandmother had breast cancer." "Okay, well, how old was she? When was she diagnosed?" And I'm just like, I don't know this stuff. And I'm like, it's almost like having a panic attack in an office about something you can't even control. And I told the doctor, I said, "Look, can I take this home? This is homework for me, okay? I cannot fill this out in this room with you because I don't know." And then call her mom and be like, "Mom, WTF, like, where's the tree? Why ain't nobody built a family tree with this information?" And so I built my own, but I went into work mode. Like, okay, we need to assign a point of contact to each branch of the family to keep it updated. And they're like, "No, we're not doing that." So just trying to do what's best for me, but then also I wanted to be able to preserve history for when that next person gets diagnosed, because it's going to happen. I hate to say it. And be able to say, "Okay, little cousin, here's the family tree. Here's how it applies to you. Take from it what you need, but you don't have to go do that research."
And I absolutely relate to that. I am the first of three sisters to be diagnosed with no known genetic component. And I am the family historian and the person who has the document that put it all together, and every girl in my family has it. And every time something changes, now I'm metastatic. Hey, take this to your doctor, because we have to know these things. And it's funny because I'll talk to my mom and I'll be somewhere deep in third, fourth cousin on the family tree, and I'll say a name, and suddenly she's like, "Oh yeah, they did this, this, and this." And I'm like, we've been talking about family history for years now. How do you still forget these key pieces of information? And so, yes, having the conversations about family history and genetics and talking about fertility. So many people battle quietly, silently on their own. And these conversations, there's somebody out there who's going to hear this episode and say, "I'm getting ready to go on this journey," or "I went on this journey all by myself." But there are people out there who have walked before me, who can share, who look like me. That is so important. Mm-hmm. And that's why conversations like this are so necessary.
Yeah. And I think we have that fear of, right, this is too personal. Nobody's going to want to talk about it. And that's absolutely not the truth, because someone is waiting, for someone for someone else to initiate that conversation. And that brings comfort to them, just to know there's someone else with those same thoughts that may be in the same place, or they've already experienced some of the things that I have 1,000 questions about.
Absolutely. So let's get ready to kind of close out. What I'm going to do is give each of you the stage to share. What would you like another baddie to know? What do you want the community to know? What do you want healthcare to step up and do? Just whatever you'd like to share about your fertility journey and how we as a community can help drive the needle on making sure that women of color know all their options and can get the best fertility care.
I think for me, for the advice for other baddies is to recognize that even though we're kind of stuck after diagnosis, you have so many decisions to make and you're focused on what needs to happen at that moment, realizing that there is life after diagnosis. So you have to start to think about what that means for you, and that the diagnosis doesn't change your desires, right? So you still have a right to pursue those desires of your heart, whatever they may be. And to the medical teams, it is, we are not just a number, right? We are unique individuals, and every situation is different, and we deserve to be seen that way. And our treatment should reflect our desires as well. And then for those other baddies, don't be afraid. There's someone out there that they're in the same place, right? Or they've been there before, and there's always someone willing to walk along with you. You should not have to go through this journey alone. It may take that brave step of sending an email, sending a DM, right? Going to someone's inbox, but that could change your entire journey by having someone walk along and hold your hand with you, even if that's virtually.
I wholeheartedly agree on the being there for the baddie. Somebody is there going through the same thing, and they're not saying anything, and they're sitting there silently suffering. And you don't have to suffer alone. Always send a DM, always send an email, a text, say something, if you need help in this, especially with someone who looks like you, because trust me, they want to hear from somebody else, because it's kind of hard to talk to other people about this who don't understand what you're going through, especially family or even friends or even other people going through cancer who don't look like you. For the healthcare system, I always hope and pray that one day that we will advance to a point where we can cover all of this stuff. I don't think any cancer survivor of any type of cancer should ever have to worry about being a mother at the end of the day. I think that should be fully covered. They're getting there to certain extents. IUI is covered in certain states and things like that, but that's not enough. If I want to have a baby, just go ahead and make that happen and store my eggs for me, or let me put them in my freezer. That's how I see it. But I feel like there's so much more advancement to be done, and maybe it'll happen for future generations. And I'll be thankful for that when it happens as well.
Quickly, I just want to say, I feel like if this was dudes who couldn't have babies, they'd find a way. Just like I say with our broken vaginas, if it was us who couldn't get it up, legislation would change immediately.
Yes. I would say for me, to the medical community, I wish that they saw us out the way we seek them out for opportunities like this, to be able to invite them into our safe spaces that we created, communities that look like us, spaces where we're really thriving, to bring their medical expertise to. I wish that they did the same, that those offices had resources, not just, the older white lady group of survivors, or, middle-aged white women going through fertility. There's so much that's out there. I mean, this is living proof. So I wish that they saw us out instead of the other way around. To all the baddies out there, I would say, instead of you only live once, I would say you live every day and you only die once. So live every day like it's your last. Sign up for that 5K, that 10K, half marathon, full marathon. Take that trip, whether it's a solo trip or a family trip. Do all of the things, and don't wait to have a +1. If it's something you want to do, then find a way to do it and make it happen, as opposed to waiting for someone to catch up to you and walk along with you in this thing we call life.
I appreciate you ladies so much for your honesty, for your vulnerability, for sharing such personal stories. This really opens the door to have the conversations that are necessary. And I know that there are women who are going to be able to relate to your stories. Even though they're all different, they have a similar thread. And this is really going to start people having the conversations that are necessary. And I think this will help us understand better how to serve the community when it comes to fertility and motherhood. And so I thank you for your time tonight.
This is another Baddie creation brought to you by For the Rest of Us. Don't forget to subscribe to Baddie2Baddie wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Facebook and Instagram at For the Breast of Us, on Twitter at The Breast of Us, and check us out online at breastofus.com. Thanks for listening.